I'm TechieTeee. I'm a data engineer and blockchain developer, and today I'm going to talk to you briefly about how libp2p and other decentralized technologies are changing data governance. This is a little bit more about my background. I've done academic research, consulting, entrepreneurship, working with CPG brands. Before I go further, I want you guys to just kind of participate and kind of see where your headspace is about data governance. So if you had to put a number to it, how big would you say the current market for data governance is? Just shout it out. Like millions, billions, trillions, what? Like how big the market is in terms of like US dollars. Like how big do you think it is? 100 million? Okay, any more guesses? 50 billion? Okay, any more guesses? So, it's like these random business groups. They'll do like assessments of the market. They'll look at companies like Google, AWS, and the tools and how much revenue those companies are generating. Any more guesses? 2.5 trillion? Okay, so we've had literally guesses from the millions to trillions, right? So by 2030, the market is estimated to be $14.53 billion. And right now it's a little bit over $3 billion. So this is a market that's only getting bigger every year. So we need to be thinking about how we're going to revolutionize this market, how we're going to improve it, and how we're going to make sure the data, is as safe as possible and that we're putting good protocols in place to govern the data. So the reason why this is important because the big L some major companies have taken over the past few years. So just in 2016, user had a major data breach where literally like more than 50 million users, personal information, and also drivers had their information breached. Then in 2017, you had an Equifax breach, which was even worse. Because now you're talking about people's credit information, social security information, finance information. So it makes it really easy for these people to be victims of identity theft, right? And then also you had Cambridge Analytica that happened in 2018. So this is with Facebook. So basically, a lot of users on Facebook had their data accessed without their permission, and it was used for political campaigns. So we're talking about everyday services that we use like Uber, financial information, and even information that be used for political campaigns. This is a big reason why we need to think about how we can reimagine data governance. So this is where libp2p comes in. So you guys already know this, but just in case you don't, okay. So libp2p allows us to have a modular design, just like kind of like Legos, where we can, have more control over how the data is accessed, when it's accessed, and having more traceability and auditability on chain. And also giving us the opportunity for it to be scalable, flexible, and more resilient and highly interoperable with different types of systems and different tech stacks. But that's drastically different from how things are right now for Web 2 world. So as you can see here, this is like a traffic backup. So imagine that you have one gate and you have a city full of cars that are trying to make it through that one gate and tremendous bottlenecks that are happening. So you have centralized control over the data that will be over, on a traditional system like AWS, GCP, Azure, and the centralized databases that they have available and the tools that they use for data governance, like Microsoft Purview and other tools. It makes it really challenging for users to move their data between systems, to make changes. You're pretty locked into the vendor and the high costs that are associated with their data governance tools. And it also makes it challenging to standardize the protocols. And so here are some of the top tools right now that are used in data engineering for data governance. So are any of you guys familiar with any of these? Calibra, Purview, Ranger, Atlas? So Calibra and Purview are two proprietary technologies. Calibra is a private company. Purview is Microsoft's tool for data governance. It kind of sucks because you have to use Microsoft's in-house tools. It's pretty slow about cataloging the data, being able to find labels and trends in the data so that you can easily see who has access control to the data. It's very slow. So for instance, let's say if you were working for a university, right? There's basically no easy way right now to easily catalog the data, to look at the metadata, to see what's available, and to give the various people in departments access to the data they need. It's pretty like manual process. Like they'll do the scans, but then somebody still has to go through manually and verify those scans. So it makes it really challenging when you're trying to have a comprehensive data governance model for a large institution like a hospital, university, or maybe like a Fortune 100 company. So it needs to change. And even for the options that are available in open source, they're not that much better. So you have Apache Ranger, Apache Atlas, and by themselves, they're able to do a lot in terms of cataloging the data and labeling it. But then for access control and data quality management, you usually have to cobble 2 or 3 tools together, which makes it pretty terrible and creates some security risk at all the different points where you're intersecting technologies. So how can this shift with libp2p? So by having decentralized data ownership and control, you'll be able to have more resilience in your systems, and also content addressing the data, and community-driven data quality and labeling versus just being driven by one centralized technology. It also provides you more flexible access control mechanisms and the ability to audit the data on chain, right? So one thing that's interesting to me, right? So let's say for healthcare applications. For the HIPAA, Healthcare Portability Act, you would think that your data is very portable, right? And that you would be able to see who accesses your data and when. That's not really the case, right? Like basically the hospitals pretty much own your data, and you don't know when the doctors or nurses have accessed your data. You have no way of being able to see that, that in a transparent way. So what if we could instead flip that model for how data is accessed and how it's governed by you having control over it, and you be able to literally go log in and see on chain when your data is accessed and by who. And you can revoke that access when necessary. Also, it provides a lot more secure layer to protect the data, because now you don't have one big honeypot of data in a centralized server that hackers could easily access, steal your data to everybody else's, because of data governance failure for an institution. So tools are changing. How will this look in the future, right? Instead of having tools that are proprietary or tools that are pretty limited in terms of the open source side for Web 2, we could have decentralized policy management. So instead of having one, lousy data governance protocol for a whole system, how would it look to have, basically modular data governance policies for each department? And then being able to audit that at any point in time to see when the data was accessed, instead of individually going in and saying, oh, Bob from IT should have access to this data. We're gonna wait until Carol approves them. Like, it's a pretty slow process. We can make it a lot quicker. We can make it a lot more secure by thinking about how we can interface these tools with libp2p. Also, you'll be able to see the data lineage very easily on chain, which is another great thing we're thinking about regulatory compliance, especially for financial data, healthcare data that's highly regulated, and be able to see that on chain. Instead of relying on Bob or Carol in IT and various people who work in the departments of schools, hospitals, whatever, making good passwords, what if we were instead be able to use cryptographic mechanisms so that we don't have to rely on, again, another weak point for data to be easily accessed in poor data governance models, how they exist now. I think also we'll be able to see more data quality improvements. So being able to see the data quality to being improved, because it's constantly being audited and trust scoring being performed by people in the community. This is going to change how data governance is happening in data engineering, and related areas. We're going to see a rise in new skill sets, by developers. We're going to see interoperable data lineage. We're going to see shift in personnel. So maybe you have somebody who is literally dedicated to cybersecurity for the data for an organization right now, but maybe that person will be able to operate in another role because a lot of that same things that person does in their job is done on chain. You'll be able to see the tracking, as I said earlier, and you're also going to see regulatory changes, right? So even though it seems like crypto has some good days and bad days with regulators, I think they're going to come around because they're going to be able to more easily audit the data that's available on chain and actually hold organizations responsible for how and who they allow data to be accessed for their customers. So yeah, things are changing. I think it'll be really cool to see what happens, especially for maybe some of the Apache tools that they are integrating with libp2p, and how we can have either open source tools that integrate Web3 technologies like libp2p, and maybe some of the traditional Web2 companies will come around too. But yeah, stuff is changing, and it's changing for the better.